Hello everyone, my name is Mr. Big T Anderson. This is Rain on My Parade by Yachi. This is obviously an FF9 fanfiction, if you couldn't tell. Now, if you're new here, let me go over. I'm just Schmucky Duck reading it. My intros have been off this month. You can tell I'm getting back into it. I'm sorry, I apologize for that. Anyway, I do give author credit, but still. Anyway, if you're new here, let's go through the intro. I'm just Schmucky Duck reading it here. These are not my stories. In this case, Yachi is. The art is... I'm actually doing the recordings before picking the art, so I don't know what art I will choose yet, but you will see artist links down below as well for the cover piece, behind my beautiful blue curtain. And hopefully you will go down, see the artist's work, go read some fan fiction if you enjoyed this. There you go. Is that everything? I think so. Let's begin. I am nearly alone. Nearly. I don't want to start explaining my past. Hell, I don't even want a future. What does that past mean to me? If now is past future, I want nothing to do with it. See, the problem with him is the fact that he looks forward all the time. What good does looking at what might happen when there are people around you dying? When you can smell the very blood on the earth? When you can see the ground that your own hands are straining? Anything can happen now, but he looks at what could happen after and what happened before, and when there was nothing to feel sorry about. Tears are something that accompanies sorrow. Sorrow accompanies the wrong decisions. Wrong decisions are the root of everyone's hatred, fear, sadness, anger, fury, mental instability. The rest follows, such as death, pain, ignorance, betrayal? Huh. Or is every single wrong turn just another lesson? Does looking forward mean that you are teaching yourself how to hate? To cry? If you spill the blood and find yourself on your knees, who else to blame but yourself? My mother asked me these questions. I know now presently that she never once expected me to give a right or a wrong answer. I couldn't even understand what she meant, so I said I don't know. She knew I would, of course. I knew little of what my father was putting her through. I knew too little of the pain she was suffering. He hated me for being what I appeared to be, and she loved me for who I was. My own father hated me. That's right, he looked ahead at what he knew. Somewhere in his drunken, half-scarred mind was dangerous to not only himself, but to his wife and his only child, me. He looked forward at money, at a life that he thought would bring him great fortunes. At home I was only 4 and growing all too rapidly. I demanded, without even knowing it, a great deal of attention. Food, you know, the stuff you need to grow. The man I called father became sir. I'd only thought then long ago that he'd been the same way with her. My mother, well, though it hurts to remember the times, took my shoulders and looked me straight in the face. Every night she would make me promise to never become like him. I swore to her every time, and even then I had my throat exposed to a quick death. A painful one. Like now. I suppose it's quite painful, sitting here, remembering this stuff, looking over useless memories I'd long ago forced myself to forget. What are you writing? He wasn't one to be surprised, in any case, and the voice came from above him, among the thick, dew-soaked grasses. Craning his neck, the wrongfully infamous bandit peered into an uncomfortably familiar face. Freya Crescent stared back, gradually taking his silence for offense. If you want me to leave, then I will. I'm only a little curious. I never knew you could write. I never knew you were this nosy, so we're even. How marvelous. said the Burmesian. Several drops of water rained down upon the bounty hunter's face as she leapt from the ledge. Amaranth stood up, concealing the note inside of a pocket before she could land. I was getting the idea you were running away on me. Freya's soft voice ignited an irritated twitch in his left arm. It's a little spooky. I look up and you're there. Next, you vanished like a raindrop. You never did respect others' privacy. Amaranth scorned, feeling a little protective over his handwritten note. There was no way he could let her. I'm not forcing you to. It's unlike you to run off to write something behind a disfigured boulder. She replied, shrugging the comment from her shoulder like water from her coat brim. Is something the matter? Something's always the matter. If you've had enough of tapping into my past, would you leave me alone? Growled, turning away from her. Freya was unable to help herself. Your past? She inquired, one eyebrow arcing above the other. It was his slip-up, which rightfully gave her reason to ask him about it. However, Amaranth was less than likely to not only understand it, but care in the matter. His back remained to her eyes, but he did pause for only a moment to respond. I hate discussions. And disappeared through the sheets of downpouring rain. That's because you never have them. Shaking her head, more drops of moisture fell from the brim of her hat. Think about it twice! She hollered after him, hoping he could hear her voice above the roaring of the storm. Whatever it is, Amaranth, I'll talk about it with you. Not interested. Ignoring the passing citizens even when they swore at him, upon being knocked into the mud, the repaired gates of Burmecia swung open before him at the hands of some rather reluctant-looking soldiers. He crossed through them without a side glance. He was getting used to being wet by now. The only moments he had to dry off were the ones inside the castle, and even then, his minutes spent outside heavily outweighed the time spent indoors. Water or none, he preferred open space over some rat's nest, especially when that rat's nest was full of rats blubbering over their city's loss. So what if it was a pile of rubble? Rats lived in rubble. They were home. The streets shared small rivers, intertwining and locking together in a complicated series of unnatural irrigation. The only vegetation to grow at the benefit of this disaster was likely to be the gravel weeds, sprouting between stone cracks and buildings. Somehow, although it could never be predicted, the amount of rainfall had increased to twice its normal amount during the past 2 months. So it had been a long, sorry stretch of time while waterlogged, overgrown rats desperately tried to piece their city back together. Amaranth grunted with distaste. Nothing smelt worse than a wet rat. It wasn't as if he had something against him. Even if he had been against his will, the rat city had taken him in when Treno was thrown into oblivion. His mind had been pretty much set on living among the shambles of the lifeless city when Freya, in all her friendly goodness, had appeared to offer him a job. A job that involved rebuilding Burmecia. He wasn't a technician or a carpenter. Rocks and mud weren't his idea of a profession. So when Freya brought the subject up, he had immediately disappeared. It was barely an hour before Freya, not miraculously, found him again, and it took a long conversation before she got to the point of the job being clean. That day was the first day he ever heard about the war between Burmecia and the Lefane people. Clueless as to who or what Lefane was, Amaranth accepted the job as a spy. Undercover investigator. Damn me if she hasn't the smallest clue. His own thoughts haunted him, reminding him constantly of the little parchment folded in his pocket, ignored, left out, irregardless from all existence. That was the beginning of his own personal autobiography, and he meant personal as the way it sounded. Looked upon by none other than himself, or come hell and high water, no one was getting their hands or claws on his little piece of the past. So, that was it. You know, Amaranth is... He's a character I can kind of empathize with. You don't really have a spot. And I mean, not in the fanfiction, but in the game. If you know in the game, he was a character where he was very skilled, but he really didn't have a base or anything, so... I would like to think that. Maybe I'm not that skilled. Maybe I have to... Maybe it's Dunning-Kruger and I'm just a complete idiot. It could be that too. Who knows? Anyway. If you enjoyed it, you know what to do. Please share, like, subscribe. You know, I will have video game videos sometime. I put these up. This is like my first thing. And then everything else is second. I'm actually trying to get some effects to make my videos a little bit shinier. But in any case, I hope you enjoy. Ta-ta for now.